Every leader has a strategy. Executing on that strategy is the challenge. If you want to learn how to effectively achieve what you've set out to accomplish, then this show is for you. Gain keen insights and listen in as leaders share their stories and challenges. SOAR Vision Group and the Baldridge Foundation welcome you to LeaderDialogue Radio.
This is Duffy Dixon with Business Radio X. Thanks so much for joining us. Let me introduce our two dynamic leaders of SOAR Vision Group. Ben Sawyer is the Chief Executive Officer. Ben has over 30 years of executive leadership experience, and he has significant guided strategy deployment experience. He has worked with many clients and has achieved dramatic, sustainable operational performance and greatly improved outcomes. Next to him is Jennifer Strahan. She is the President of Business Optimization Services for SOAR Vision Group. Jennifer has partnered with more than 100 health systems and businesses across the nation, helping them transform their strategic and administrative operations. They partner with a number of companies, and today we have a really cool one. Joining us is Brian Fosse, who is the CEO of Lalabu, and also Cameron Glass, who is the COO of Lalabu. Now, I have seen the website, and I know about this product, but I want you to tell us about what is Lalabu.
So Lalabu, we make simple baby wearing products, and our first product was called the Soothe shirt, and I'm wearing the version for dads called the Dad shirt.
Yeah, let's if you can't see us, we're videotaping, this is also a podcast. You have a fake baby strapped onto you in a cool looking shirt.
Yeah, it's a demo baby, so this is like a newborn baby, and the whole idea of these shirts is we wanted to make it very easy to baby wear. So at Lalabu, our tagline is simple baby wearing. We think the easier we make it, the more people will do it, and we want more people to do it. And so with our Dad shirt that I'm wearing, you just slide your baby in and go about doing what you're going to do with your child, because we want to make products to encourage parents to do things with their children.
Now, you do have other products for moms as well, but I think, the Dad shirt was the actual product winner for 2018 Maternity Magazine. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Dad shirt. And this, you are from Atlanta, and I'm telling you, everyone is talking about this. I have people on my Twitter feed talking about the Dad shirt. This is so great. Was it important to you to include dads?
It was really important. In fact, our first product was just for moms. It was a Soothe shirt, and we had a lot of moms requesting products for the dads. And it wasn't until I had my second child, my daughter Flora, that I really felt left out too, because my wife was wearing the Soothe shirt. I didn't have something for a newborn baby, and so we decided let's make a version for dads. And it's really caught on. We didn't know how the market would respond, but I think there's so few products just for the dads out there that it's really caught on more than we even expected.
Well, you've worked with SOAR Vision Group, and you guys have really helped them in this vision. Explain that, Ben.
Yeah, so Lalabu is a really fascinating company that's incredible with innovation, and now they're at a place where they're looking for investors, either to invest in their company directly and or even potentially acquire the company at some point. And so to do that, you have to pull together an investor deck. So it starts actually with the description of the leaders. So before we get into that whole process and sort of how the investor preparation process connects to the organizational hierarchy of needs, please introduce yourselves a little bit more from the leadership standpoint, because your backgrounds are fascinating.
Cameron, I'll let you go first.
So I joined Lalabu about a year ago, and prior to that, I had spent my career between retail in sort of functional roles in retailing and merchandising and planning across a lot of different retail companies. Had also spent a good bit of time in consulting, so had gotten to see sort of the ins and outs of how do we fix problems on the consulting side, but really was missing just a functional, being able to have a tangible product to stand behind. And so when the opportunity with Lalabu came about, it was a great fit for me.
And Cameron, you're being modest, so I know you have your MBA from...
I do have my MBA from Emory.
And you worked at Saks for a while, and I forgot what consulting company.
So I worked for Kurt Salmon, as a boutique retail consultancy, as well as North Highland, which also does retail consultancy.
So Cameron has an incredible background, as you can tell, and to be able to bring that to a company the size of Lalabu has been significant. Brian.
Oh yeah, we've been thrilled to have Cameron on our team. It's been awesome. We wouldn't be able to do what we've been able to do. I mean, we've really grown a lot in the last year, and a big part of that's been having Cameron on our team.
Right, and your background is interesting in that it started with industrial engineering. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so systems engineer background, industrial engineer from Georgia Tech. My first job was actually working at Disney World in the theme parks, helping to optimize how people move through the theme park. But everything about systems engineering is how can we do something more efficiently? How can we do it in a more optimal way? So when you take that and you apply it to baby wearing, my wife and I originally were on a trip to Africa. We learned about baby wearing. We loved it. We get back to the States. We realize people don't do it as much. Well, why don't they do it? It's too complicated for some people. So essentially what we've done is applied a systems engineering perspective to baby wearing. How can we make it simpler so more people will do it? So anyway, from Disney, I actually got my MBA at Georgia Tech as well, and I worked for an e-commerce company called Supply.com, selling toilets online. I sold...
Everybody needs one.
Yeah, everybody does.
Talk about supply and demand.
Another conversation for another time, but I can convince anybody to buy a new toilet. At the time, we were selling a little over $20 million a year in toilets online, and when creating Lalabu, I thought, well, if I can sell toilets online, I should be able to sell just about anything. So it wasn't intimidating to say, we'll take this new product, we'll try selling it online. And so left that job to do Lalabu full time, started selling direct to consumers. And that's largely how we've grown, is direct sales to consumers online.
And your wife and co-founder is a systems engineer as well, right?
Yeah, that really helped. We complemented each other well. Carrie, my wife, worked full time in the business until we had our third child. And at that point, she wanted to be able to be home with the kids more. But we had different strengths. I'm more the visionary a little bit, even though we have the same background. And she was more on the operations side. And so it was a good fit.
So if I can relate that back to our organizational hierarchy of needs, because you've mentioned a couple of things around systems engineering, but what you've actually touched on is looking at customer value. So how do you create customer value by giving them something that we don't always think about? It goes back to those innovative companies. They're often giving us a delighter that we didn't recognize we needed because we've become accustomed to what was out there. Baby wearing, so as a mom, I can tell you when my son was small, I wish I'd have known about your products because it's complicated. Unless you're strapping everything in or wrapping something around you 50 times, it's very intimidating. So you've talked about customer value and you've also talked about the organizational effectiveness and how do you actually make it to bring, how do you have your company in a capability to bring that value to the market?
Yeah, and just adding to that a little bit, we always wanted to make products that would add to the market. And our goal has been, let's create products that are going to expand the market. So we're not trying to take customers necessarily away from the existing baby carrier companies. We're trying to make products that are going to bring new people in because still about 40% of people in the U.S. register for baby carrying products, so the market can grow a lot. And that's why we're trying to simplify it. And for people at home that can't see, I have another product here. It's our Lalabu baby wearing romper, which we aren't even shipping yet, but it is a baby romper that the baby wears throughout the day, and everything you need to wear them is integrated into it. And it's very different. There's nothing like it on the market. It's going to ship later this year, but it's an idea too. You can put this on your child, and everything you need to wear them is with you all the time.
So it's like instead of the diaper bag.
Well, yeah.
I don't have children, so forgive my forgive my dumb question maybe. But what can you carry with the baby?
Well, let me put it this way. My baby wearing shirt that I'm wearing, it's intended for newborns until they're big enough for a traditional baby carrier.
Okay.
If you have a traditional baby carrier, it's a piece of gear you need to carry around when you're not using it. With this baby wearing romper, this picks up when babies outgrow the shirts, and the baby can be wearing this throughout the day. So whether you're in your kitchen and you just want to pick up your baby for 2 minutes, you can do that. Or whether you're out at the store, it's with you. It's not, oh, I left my baby carrier at home, or I need to carry this thing around. It's with them and on them all the time.
So can you put the baby in there and kind of demonstrate what that looks like?
Well, what I can do, since not everybody can see it, I can explain it, because what I'm wearing is a newborn demo doll. This would be more for like a 6 to 18-month-old baby.
Right.
But basically there's a middle zipper that you unzip, and you can put the baby in there, shoulder straps that go around.
So it looks like overalls.
It looks like overalls. It's cute on the baby. It's like an outfit for the baby. And then whenever you want to wear them, there's these zippers on either side where there are stowable straps that come out.
Oh, very fancy.
And the stowable straps, it's actually a lot easier to use when it's actually on a baby. You just pick them up and put your arms through it, whether on your front or your back.
So it looks a little bit like a backpack, but it would be worn on the front.
Or the back.
or the back. But when you're not using that, those go away. So that's genius.
That's also nice because you mentioned it's for a little bit older children,
Yes.
where again, I think a lot of my knowledge of the market, which is definitely not as extensive as you guys, that it's targeted much more towards younger children, other than like hiking backpacks.
Well, there's a sweet spot for baby wearing, and I would say it's from birth until children are about 2 years old. Lots of people do it longer than that, but when you're going to do it the most is in those years. And so our shirts are ideal from newborns until they're 4 to 6 months old, and then this is ideal until they're running around on their own, a 2-year-old. And if I were to add one more thing about this new baby wearing romper, we don't get into details all the time on marketing, but it has a lot of safety benefits. The way that baby carriers are evaluated are how likely can a child slide out of it, how likely are they to suffocate, like their mouth will get covered. This design fundamentally takes away the leg holes that babies can fall through. It also takes away the pouch that they can slide in so they can't suffocate. So from those two major concerns, it eliminates them, which is something that's nice.
So one of the other interesting things, Cameron, is there's actually a difference between baby wearing and baby carrying. So can you explain to the audience a little bit about that and why what you're doing at Lalabu is so unique?
Sure. So, there is a pretty big difference, and I think a lot of companies out there right now are more in the baby carrying space. Baby wearing, I think, is more of a real lifestyle. So it's a more overarching concept. And so at Lalabu, like Brian mentioned, we're really looking to make baby wearing more accessible to everyone, so that it's not just something you do when you go on a hike or when you take your child to Target, or maybe places where you traditionally see people wearing baby carriers. We really want parents to be able to do everything that they're doing with their baby right there with them, because there's so many benefits to that for the children as well as for the parents, for bonding. And
so it's essentially a subset of baby carrying, but it's a market that you all have innovated on and in some ways are the market leader on. And how big is baby wearing within the whole baby carrying market?
Yeah, I'll answer that, and I'll add a little bit to what Cameron said there. I think there's a real tension for parents between keeping up with the just demands of everyday life and investing time with their children. And so with baby wearing, what we're trying to do is make it easier for them to do things together and have more time with their children and more shared experiences. Because speaking for myself with 3 children, my oldest, it's flown by. He's not a baby anymore. I can't do this anymore. So this is about making it possible for people to create some more of those shared moments along the way. As far as the size of the market, if you look at the U.S. market, depending on who you talk to, it's somewhere around a $250 million market per year. And that just gets to, there's about 4 million births a year in the U.S. And then you do the math of the percentage of people that baby wear. And that's where the market size is now. Now that's U.S. A lot of baby carrier companies, over half their sales are international. So you can take that U.S. number, you can effectively double it or even a little more if you want to get to the worldwide market today as it is. And it's a growing market because not everybody does it. So there's room for it to keep growing.
So let's bring this back to the investor process, and thinking about what is it that kind of triggered this thought process? What made you recognize, hey, we would really like to see how do we go to the next level? Because it goes back to attention we were talking about earlier in terms of cash versus operations and growth.
Sure. So Lalabu has been a bootstrap business from the beginning. In fact, the first 2 years when my wife and I were doing it on our own without a team, we didn't pay ourselves. And we've always grown a little ahead of the cash that we had. Even right now, I mean, we're developing 2 new innovative products. We've talked about the baby wearing romper. We have another one that, in my opinion, is even more innovative and really excited about it. And so we're investing all this cash in new products that we're not going to see revenue for maybe another 12 plus months or so at any given time. And so we've always done that through being really creative and keeping our expenses low, keeping our overhead low, and just trying to be efficient in what we do. But eventually you get to a point where you say, all right, if we're going to grow our distribution channels, if we're going to market this really as we need to, if we're going to get the people on our team to fulfill the different roles, we're going to need more money. Because there's a certain kind of threshold that you need in a company to have all the roles, whether you're small or large. And so we've been, like Cameron and I and the rest of our team wears a lot of hats. But to really go to the next level, to go where we are now, we realize we need some cash. Mm-hmm.
Right. So investors look at things pretty comprehensively. And so we started off this conversation before you were introducing yourselves to say this actually links to this organizational hierarchy of needs that viewers can see behind us. And for those who Go ahead, Duffy.
Yeah, for those of you who are listening to the podcast and following along, we give this out every week. Get on your laptop or your computer, www.LeaderDialogue.com. And the first thing you will see is this organizational chart, and you can see where we're going to hit every single one of these things. And this is interesting to me because we've never done a show about what you need to present to potential investors. And this should line up.
It lines
pretty much
up perfectly. So for the viewers, let me just unpack this a little bit, and then we're going to ask you guys some specific questions about it. So what the viewers know from looking on the homepage is that the organizational hierarchy of needs has 5 levels. It starts with, what's your strategy? And you guys have already talked about the differentiated strategy of baby wearing versus baby carrying, which has the differentiated value of giving parents and their children more contact time as they're growing up and better relationship development. And it's also at a price point that they can afford, and it has a safety factor. So there's a number of differentiated things that you talked about that. You then talked about strategy execution. You bootstrapped, you figured out where your distribution markets are. One of the things that I'm going to come back and ask you about is how you've leveraged social media to help get the word out. But then if you just go down through the rest of it, you've had to manage financial performance. You talked about that. You've had to manage customer value and how do you tap into demand. You've talked about organizational effectiveness, and we'll talk more about that in terms of how do you get the most out of your processes and the money you're using. And then ultimately, you just referenced your team, which is everybody's got to be on the same page and acting like owners to make that happen. So with that as a backdrop, as we were working together to develop your investor perspectives, what were some of the sort of standouts or highlights in developing that investor deck, and things that if investors are listening right now, you would want to emphasize to say, look, these are really the standouts for us?
Well, I'll start. I think as we were building out the deck, it was like really crucial to get all of the financial performance metrics nailed down and be able to highlight those in a really like clear and concise manner. So that was something that we, as we started working through, what are the right things to really be showing? It was reassuring or refreshing to me to see like Lalabu really has been operating like in a very clean fashion. Like our expenses, like Brian said, were really in check. So there was nothing like from an investor standpoint that would stand out as like, oh, this is a big red flag. Like they haven't been, managing their money well, or they've been spending on something that doesn't work. I think as an organization, we are pretty nimble. So we like to test things, see how they're working, and then pretty quickly make a decision whether we want to move forward with it or not. And because of our business model, we're able to see results pretty quickly in most of the things we invest in. So as we were working through the deck, that was something that just getting all those numbers together and being able to really present those was really interesting, I think.
And then on the same financial front, Brian, you were looking at your projections and clarifying where you could go. So talk to us a little bit about that. What is the potential for Lalabu in this space?
Sure. So we've grown. Last year we were just under $1 million in annual sales. This year we're aiming to be around 1.5 million in annual sales. The prospectus that we put together has us going over the next 4 years to around 8 to 10 million in annual sales. And it was great to look at that because we realized our growth has been almost entirely through direct sales online. So where a lot of the other brands maybe in the space, they grew through distribution channels, whether international distribution or major retail. And so we could say, well, here's where we can safely, based on our 5 years of history, project our direct sales growing. And then if we layer onto it these other channels, it actually is a conservative thing to say, oh, we're going to grow to this $8 million number, because we actually had a more aggressive one that had us growing to $20 million. And some of that gets to how much investment do you take? How aggressively do we go after these new channels? But the $8 million one was the conservative. If we keep doing what we've been doing and just scale it more and layer on these new products. Yeah.
But as your partner that was helping you with the investor deck, we were convinced of both things. In other words, Cameron, what you talked about was the organization was really well run. There was no monies being spent that were unnecessary. There was no extravagance. It was all very, very focused. And we looked at the $20 million number and said, oh, no, that's for real. Like when we look at the market size, I appreciate your conservatism, but I think 20 million actually is for real. The next thing that we look at is customer value. So Jennifer, talk a little bit about this tap into demand and specifically kind of how Lalabu went after that.
Yeah, so we've talked about this a lot on the show over the last several weeks and different ways that you can start to look at demand. It's interesting because I think the value that you guys bring is that you have a niche with innovation. So in most businesses, and this is actually particularly hard to manage in small businesses because as you alluded earlier, you're wearing many hats and you're having to do many things at once. It's very difficult to be able to also think about how am I doing what I do really well right now.
Because when I used to sell toilets, right, we didn't use social media that much. I tried. It just people wouldn't talk about what toilet they had. But we did
Not
a
a
lot.
big game changer.
Yeah. We did a lot of paid search, direct response, paid advertising online. And so I started with that. But then what I did is I basically said, well, let's give ourselves a month to focus on different channels. And so, a month focusing on what can we do with Twitter, what can we do with Facebook. And then we got to Instagram. And I just had so much success in some experimental things we were doing with Instagram. So we started focusing in there. And what would basically happen, our products now have tremendous word of mouth. In fact, you just get it in somebody's hands. A mom or dad using this product is going to interact with other people at the same life stage, and they're going to ask them about it, and they're going to tell them.
And it's something so visual that you have to stop and ask.
Right.
I mean, it's something that how is that working? It just looks like a t-shirt. How can that be supporting the baby? The baby's so comfortable. I mean, that's just got to be an automatic conversation starter.
Yep. And so when you're thinking about marketing, the way I thought about it is if I can get a product in somebody's hands and I can safely assume that at least one more person's going to buy because of this, I'm not losing money. And so from a marketing, we've spent the majority of our marketing budget on just getting product in people's hands. Yes, we can do some ads and things, but it's just effective to get the product out there. So we strategically identify parents and we get product to them. Because we figure they're going to tell their friends, and that's going to help us grow. And we have a whole process. That's like the high level. There's a whole process of how we do that.
So before we get off tap into demand and customer value, you've done some other big things. You were on Thunderdome, right? And you also had some other big visibility. Talk to us a little bit about that and how that potentially augmented your visibility in the market.
It's always nice to get some press. We're always welcome to that. I think our biggest win that we've had is there's a video done by a site called Business Insider, and I think to date it's gotten over 25 million views. And they actually did that without our knowledge. They just posted a video and it took off. And that just speaks to the viral nature of the product itself. But yeah, we got to be on Steve Harvey's Thunderdome. And all these opportunities have come to us. We actually haven't looked for much PR. We've done this process of just getting the product out in the market, and then these PR opportunities have come our way. And we think there's a lot of opportunity for us to seek PR and get more of it. And that's part of why we're getting investment. So, right, there's only so much, our team's 4 full-time employees. There's only so much 4 full-time employees can do. And so we're trying to add to that.
Right. So when we move next to organizational effectiveness, if I'm an investor and I'm listening to this, I'm thinking to myself, so if I expand what you do beyond what the 4 people in your organization are doing, if this product has that level of connection, there goes the growth, right? In other words, what I need to do is just invest there, increase the ability to get the product to potential users, increase the visibility, and you've already proven that doing that actually grows volume.
That is, I just, if you're already getting that kind of buzz, people coming to you for PR, from being in a news background, that is pretty great.
Yeah.
That people are coming to you and saying, hey, can we, do a story about this, or hey, will you be on our show? This is a great product. That is almost impossible to do, especially repeatedly. And the fact that it's sustained is great. And as an investor, I mean, that's a win. Okay, so let's say I just put in a little bit more money for one PR thing. I'm already ahead.
Right, and you want a fresh, hot product in your stable of products?
He's already
So-
talking about another one he has.
Right.
So what this is a testimony to how you've been able to listen to the customer, tap into demand, and actually take it to the market. And again, it shows you that innovation, because a lot of people, we've talked about this in the past, a lot of people start a business and feel like word of mouth is going to just take them to the next level. But in reality, that's actually pretty rare. And I think what it comes back to is how you've been very intentional with everything you've done. You've not allowed yourselves to get distracted, and you've done it with very strong, differentiated products, which comes back to, again, customer value. And one of our key questions for every company, how do you differentiate yourself in the market?
And as Ben said at the beginning, you've done that. I mean, it's a very different thing you're offering.
Yeah,
Right.
and originally I actually thought we'd never make another product. Like when we first came out with the Suze shirt, I thought, well, we're making this product, and I honestly thought somebody else in the industry might pick it up right away from us. Something changed a few years ago, and it was having more children, where I had to go start using the other products when they outgrew our products, and I wanted some things that I couldn't get. And so then the mindset changed, like, okay, let's come out with some new ways to baby wear for older babies, but let's not just do it like everybody else. That's not adding value to the market.
Right.
Let's come up with something that's meeting an unmet need. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So as we take it to the next level down, so the next level down is organizational effectiveness. And organizational effectiveness has three components to it. One is develop productive partnerships. One is maximize operational efficiency, and the other is create high demand services and our products. So let's start with that one. I think that's pretty obvious that you did that by listening to the market. But talk to us a little bit about that as it related to how that translated into creating organizational effectiveness and the significance of that to an investor.
Well, one thing I'll add, and I think this plays right in here, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that Brian and Carrie, as they started Lalabu, were really intentional about investing in intellectual property. And in this space, that's really important because there are a lot of other players. And like Brian said, in the first year, if another big baby company had come in and said, oh, we're just going to steal this, and it wasn't protected, that would have been the end of Lalabu then. And that's hard as a small business to invest because it's not cheap, to put your money towards something that really is just a piece of paper, I think is a really sort of gutsy thing to do, because you're taking money there from what you could be doing, to add
build,
value right now. But as we're talking to investors and other companies, that's like one of the first questions they're going to ask, right? Is like, how are you protected with intellectual property? And we are very well protected. So that's been a great sort of asset that we have that started way back when the company was first founded.
What are some other things that you've done, Brian, that we haven't talked about that really underscore organizational effectiveness? For example, I know you guys have an interesting shop that's quite efficient as it relates to how you take in product, manage it, and so forth. Just explain a little bit for us of how that works.
Well, I'll add one thing, too, that I think has made a difference for our team. So we have a giving model. We give 2% of all of our revenue. And this was actually one of the things that motivated me to quit my previous job and to launch a business is, okay, I enjoyed the work I did before, and I enjoy the work I do at Lalabu, but the idea was if we're going to do a business, we want it to be more about just the profits for ourselves. And so ever from the very beginning, even when we didn't pay ourselves salaries, we always gave 2% of all revenue. And to date, I think we've been able to give over $100,000 in microfinance loans to moms in Africa. We've supported over 1,000 moms, and we've gotten into, and our customers choose now to support adoption and other things. And I'd say from an organizational effectiveness, Cameron could speak to this. I don't know if Cameron would have come and worked for us if we didn't have stuff like that in our culture. I think that's been something that's driven people to want to be a part of what we're doing. Yeah.
I think that's right. I think also, as a team member, the company is very deliberate about sort of accountability. And while in a small business, people do wear a lot of different hats and you're doing a lot of different roles, we've been really deliberate about people know sort of where their space is to play, and then being willing to kind of jump in where needed.
So that alludes to the bottom piece of the hierarchy, which is around colleague engagement. And how do you create a culture around which people want to come work with you? And that's actually a component where we don't always talk about it, but it's an embedded pillar, and it really stems back to leadership and organizational and personal values to make sure that you are building a company and a culture that people, not only that you say represent something, but that it actually does, and that you can feel that when you're there.
So we could go on,
Yep.
and I know Duffy wants to wrap this up, and we need to do that. But just,
I don't want to.
well, we need to.
I was going to say, I mean, if people want to keep listening, I'm here all day.
Yeah, me
All
too.
right. And I'm fascinated. I am fascinated by this product.
Absolutely, and so am I. I want to just do a shout out to the listeners, and particularly any that may be in the investment crowd. As the CEO of SOAR, we've been working with Lalabu to help them in their investor deck. We take a very hard look at the performance of a company relative to the backdrop of the organizational needs hierarchy, and this is for real. This company knows what they're doing, and there's a tremendous amount of potential. I think what you're talking about with the market is conservative. I think there's a lot of opportunities. So we really appreciate you coming in today and sharing that. For our listeners, it's a great example of how you put all the pieces together to be able to successfully run a company.
Absolutely. And for any business, this is how you do it.
Right.
And this is a great example of this is how you do it.
So if I can just add one thing before we wrap, is thinking about for a lot of other companies out there, this is interesting to them, right? Because as owners, you invest so much time, so much energy, and there's always that question of what's next. So whether that's growth and I want to stay in the business, or whether it's a concept of selling and having an acquisition of the company, or is it just continue to kind of run full speed and, you know, continue to go on throughout your day to day. There's all these different pathways, and you guys have really brought a diversity of what you're doing, but at the same time, a focus and a discipline to stay really engaged on your end goal, which is creating these relationships and these safe, effective products for families. So I think this is something that we can continue to unpack in our show next week with our deep dive.
Absolutely. So for more information on the man shirt or the dad shirt and all the other products, lalabu.com, correct?
LALABU.com.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. This was really, I hope people get a load of the video because it really is demonstrative. It's great to see how this works. Thank you for joining us on Leader Dialogue, presented, of course, by SOAR Vision Group and the Baldrige Foundation. Remember to tune in every Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern Time to listen to our live weekly broadcast. And then if you want to listen to any of our other shows or listen to this one again, you can go to LeaderDialogue.com/podcast. On behalf of Ben, Jennifer, and our producers Mike, Trey, and Nat, thanks for joining us. I'm Duffy Dixon. We'll see you next time on Leader Dialogue on Business Radio X.
Thank you,
you.
guys.